Andre Cacciaturian of Nesson.com and the Nesson Studios, joined here with Matt Perino of UFC.com, coming to us from Las Vegas, Nevada, ahead of UFC 212, which will take place this Saturday night on pay-per-view in Brazil. Matt, how are you doing? How's the West Coast treating you?
The West Coast is beautiful. Weather is finally starting to hit 100 degrees, and you know, the summer slate here in the UFC is super hot, so everything's going very well here in Vegas.
Yeah, and of course, UFC 213 will be in Las Vegas in July. I'll see you there. But first, we got to take care of this card. Take our visit with this card first. The main event: Jose Aldo finally returning to the octagon. It seems like forever since he last beat Frankie Edgar at International Fight Week last year. He'll be taking on Max Holloway, who's the interim featherweight champion. It's a title unification bout. I think it's going to be a fantastic one. What do you see happening in this fight, Matt?
Super interesting fight. Stylistically, Jose Aldo, over the course of his career, has taken on a lot of smaller 145ers known for grappling. You think of Chad Mendes, Ricardo Lamas, Frankie Edgar. With Max Holloway, he's going to actually be 4 inches taller. He's going to have a one inch reach disadvantage, but he is going to have the longer legs, which is going to be important when you're talking about throwing kicks. Jose Aldo loves to throw kicks. The thing about this matchup is, how do their styles match up? Jose is about power. Max is about volume. He hits people a lot. Jose, but on the same token, he gets hit a lot. He takes 2 significant strikes per minute more than Jose Aldo over the course of their career. Great fight. Max Holloway, 10-fight win streak. Jose Aldo, 9 title defenses before he lost to McGregor. So they're very similar. They're 2 of the best. It's kind of old school versus new school.
I feel like in terms of Aldo, I think his time is done, and that's not a bad thing. That's okay. Everybody hits their peak, and then they go down. That's okay. It happens to every single athlete. Father Time catches up to them. I think the McGregor fight was the beginning of the end for Aldo. The guys fought a total of 5 minutes and 13 seconds since October of 2014. That's not a lot of time in the octagon. Meanwhile, we've seen Max Holloway rise to the top of the ranks in the featherweight division, and the guy's only 25 years old. But listen to this, Matt. He's #1 among featherweights in knockdowns landed and significant strikes landed. You talked about how much he loves to hit people, and he loves to hit people, and I think that's going to be a big factor in this fight. I predict a 3rd round knockout. Max Holloway, the new undisputed featherweight champion. Who you got, Matt?
All right, before we get to that, I'm going to have to hit the brakes on your Jose Aldo is past his prime.
Whoa,
one of the best performances of his career last time out against Frankie Edgar, a guy that has beaten pretty much everybody in this division.
Yeah.
A guy that a lot of people say that Conor McGregor was ducking, didn't want to face Frankie Edgar. Jose Aldo made quick work of him. We do this thing in sports that as generations go on, you know, the standards are higher. Same thing with LeBron James in basketball. We just expect more out of them. If you look back, the greats, Randy Couture, Chuck Liddell, between them, they have about 20 losses. This guy lost 1 time, just 1 time. Jose Aldo hits hard. The issue in this fight is going to be, does he have the cardio in the later rounds? Because Max Holloway is going to have it. He's younger, but Jose Aldo has been in this moment before. We always talk about this, Andre, the championship moment. What's it going to be like for, you know, a guy that's stepping into this kind of light for the first time for Max Holloway? I think those lights shine bright. I think he's ready for it. I am picking Holloway, but man, I hate going against Jose Aldo.
I respect what you had to say about Aldo, but again, he had a great performance against Edgar, but it's not the loss against McGregor that's concerning me. It's the fact, the inactivity that Aldo has had in the last 3 years, the injuries and all that other stuff. The guy hasn't fought that much. We're looking at a guy like Holloway who's been out there. I understand this is the first time he's going to be under the limelight of a championship fight like this. For the belt, not an interim belt. But I think that interim belt fight kind of prepared him for this moment. And I think this is his time. This is the blessed time for Holloway. I agree with you. I think he's the one. I just think it might be a little more lopsided than you think.
Mm-hmm. On the Aldo side of things, keep an eye out for Holloway's landing rate, the rate at which he's landing strikes.
Yes.
Because what makes Jose Aldo so special is his ability, kind of like a Floyd Mayweather of the UFC, dodge punches. You go back even against Frankie in his last fight, some of his best highlights were the ducking under punches and sending back powerful counters. If he's doing that against Max, Max going to have to, in that moment, he's used to hitting people and hitting people at a high rate. Against Aldo, he's going to have a little bit more trouble. It's going to be a little bit more difficult, so keep an eye on that.
Well, yeah, that'll be absolutely interesting to see how Aldo defends against Holloway. And we'll talk more Aldo in our Fact or Fiction segment, but first let's talk about the co-main event, a women's strawweight battle between Karolina Kowalkiewicz from Poland and Claudia Gadelha fighting on her home turf in Brazil. Gadelha and Kowalkiewicz, both of these women have combined, they've lost 3 times, and all 3 of those losses have come against one person, JOANNA JEDRZEJCZYK. So, and they both of these fighters fought well against JOANNA, Matt. So I think it's gonna be interesting to see these 2 combatants fight each other to see who's basically the the #1 challenger for JOANNA going forward.
Carolina came out this week, Karolina, I should say, and basically made a wager that Claudia Gadelha could not knock her out in this fight. She'll buy her a beer if Claudia can knock her out in this fight, because I think she wants to kind of goad her into a striking match, because Claudia is known for her grappling, Karolina for her striking. She went, blow for blow with JOANNA champion last time out and almost finished her in the 4th round. I mean, JOANNA was rocked. I mean, Claudia brings, punches and bunches. She's able to change levels because of her multifaceted background in striking. And I think Claudia is going to have trouble dealing with that in this fight. I think she's going to, do a lot of her wrestling. She's going to shoot for takedowns. But if she doesn't have a lot of success with that, Karolina has been drilling and drilling and drilling takedown defense this entire camp, preparing for the eventual matchup with a grappler like Claudia Gadelha. I think it's a great fight, but I think I give a slight advantage to Karolina because of her ability to, strike.
Now, I got a question for you, Matt. In your opinion, when you have a striker like Karolina against a grappler like Gadelha, in general, if you have a great striker versus a great grappler, in your opinion, who has the advantage in a situation like that?
Historically, I would give the advantage to the grappler, but the evolution of MMA is happening so rapidly that you're seeing a lot of these fighters that are coming in from a striking background really elevate their game, spend a lot of time developing their grappling game. Not just for the offensive side of things like landing takedowns, because they do like to strike, so they like to keep the fight standing, but it's drilling the takedown defense, keeping the fight on the feet. And Karolina, I mean, you look at Countdown, you look at a lot of her training videos, she is doing that all the time. I think that it's one thing to drill that, and it's another thing to actually be in the fight, be tired and have to defend somebody like Claudia who's going to put her weight on her. Claudia landed takedowns against JOANNA JEDRZEJCZYK, so she's probably going to be on her back at some point in this fight. But what happens when you're on your back? You think back to Conor McGregor against Chad Mendes. Yeah. Chad Mendes was beating Conor up pretty good. He had him down on the mat a few times, but what did Conor do? He got back to his feet every single time, took the punishment, and finished the fight. Karolina can manage the situation when it's on the mat, do her best to keep it standing. I think I give the advantage to her.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, but at the same time, I'm going to go with Gadelha in this fight. I do think it's going to be very tight. When I was looking at the numbers, trying to break it down, trying to pick a winner, I'm going to give the slight edge to Gadelha. I think it will be the fight of the night. I think it's going the distance. But Gadelha is in her home turf right now. I think she's going to be jacked up for that. She'll be, you talk about home advantage all the time. I'll take Claudia because of that. And also, just again, we talked about her grappling, and you look at her last 5 fights. She has a takedown advantage of 26-1 in the last 5 fights. And Karolina's never recorded a takedown in her UFC career. I know she's a striker, but I think being at home, Gadelha will take advantage of that and take it to the mat and get some points from the judges and win by unanimous decision. But speaking of Polish fighters, let's talk about JOANNA JEDRZEJCZYK right now. She made the news this week. She was interviewed by TMZ, and if you've seen the video, it looks like it's somewhere in New York City from the background. I don't know where it was, but Basically, she said she wants to be like Conor McGregor. The UFC flyweight division coming out at 125. She wants to fight for that division. She wants 2 belts. She talked about how much she respects Conor McGregor's fighting ways and how much he trains and whatnot, and she wants to emulate that. And now we're looking at the UFC, and we see Ronda Rousey's MIA, Conor McGregor's chasing Floyd Mayweather, and we'll get to that in a bit. So, is Joanna Jedrzejczyk the next star of UFC?
I mean, I think that that's a very, very accurate statement. I think she is a superstar in the making. I don't know if we've actually crossed that that threshold yet to call her an actual, star. I mean, she hasn't headlined any pay-per-views yet, but I think that, she's on that track. She has such a likable personality. Her fighting style, it's a lot like Conor's. It's very aggressive. It's very violent. And if you look at, the 125 debate, like be like Conor. It's funny we talk about be like Conor. You think back to the 90s that be like Mike. We should make one like be like Conor commercial like that, because everybody wants to be like Conor in MMA. But I think for Joanna it makes sense, because you look at the 115-pound division. Claudia beat her twice. Karolina beat her. Rose probably next. If she beats her, that's number 3. Beat Andrade, beat Jessica Penne, beat Esparza. So she's pretty much cleaned out this division, and we're talking about Karolina again, potentially in Poland at some point. That could be a really fun fight, really fun matchup. But what's left for her at 115 pounds? Maybe that is an intriguing thing. You do the Ultimate Fighter, crown a new champion, and what a story it would be if Joanna was able to fight that champion and take that belt and kind of mix between both weight classes. It's a great story. She has the passion and drive to do it. I don't think it's for everybody, but for her, I think she can pull it off.
Yeah, you're totally right about her. Very likable personality. I love her fighting style. It's very entertaining to watch. She's a tornado, violent punches left and right. Every time we break down one of her fights, I always dig deep and look at her significant strike ratio. It's always very lopsided, so that differential is just always heavily favored toward Joanna. And
she's getting better too. I mean, you go back to when we were talking about the preview. I tried to really pump up Jessica Andrade. I thought it was going to be a real test for her, and it was exactly what you said. She just outworks everybody that she fights, and that can be said, for her work ethic. She outworks people, and by doing that, I feel like managing the stress of 2 titles and potentially moving between weight classes, I think because of her work ethic, because she's always trying to improve, she's set up to have success.
Yeah, I really wouldn't be surprised by the end of this year or the beginning of next year, she develops the type of name that Ronda Rousey or Conor McGregor has. She has a very unique name, first of all. It's like, Jacek, a lot of letters in there, a lot of consonants. It's like Mike Krzyzewski, so that itself is, could make her a household name. And I think, especially with Rousey and McGregor, she's going to be the face of UFC going forward. I mean, she doesn't lose. She's dominant. And especially you make that second weight class where she can go and be a 2-weight champion, oh, she's going to have it made for her. It's hers to lose right now. So let's move forward now to the Conor McGregor, who's in Floyd Mayweather. We had an update this week. Dana White talking about the potential fight between Mayweather and McGregor. So obviously we know Dana White and Conor McGregor have agreed to a deal. Now the UFC is trying to cut a deal with the Mayweather camp. What Dana White said is that they haven't really talked about the financial aspect of their deal, but he did say a 50-50 split would be fair, and he also predicted that there's a 75% chance that the fight happens. So he thinks a 50-50 split would be fair, but who do you think should get more of the cut from this? I mean, because both of them are big names, but who's going to be the draw for this in this fight? Who's the A side?
I mean, if you go, it's tough because you're mixing 2 worlds here, right? So obviously, Conor is the biggest star in combat sports today. I mean, there's no doubt about it. You look at his numbers. It's hard to deny him that fact. Floyd's out of the game. He's been retired. He still is technically retired. So I think just those 2 simple facts make Conor the A side. I feel like a guy, you look at Floyd Mayweather, a guy 49-0, considered by most to be the best boxer to ever do it. And it's like, why is he considered coming back to win his 50th fight against a guy that's never boxed, ever? Right. To me, that in and of itself makes kind of Conor the A side, because he's the attraction of this. It's the attraction not only for fans, but it's the attraction for Floyd Mayweather. Like, he just wants to be a part of this Conor McGregor just mega hype train. And there's no way around it. He is a hype train. He's created it, he's talked about it, and then he's delivered. And now he's saying he's going to knock out the best boxer of all time. How can you not say that all of that combined makes Conor the A side?
I mean, I have to agree with you. First, I was looking at it in the McGregor situation. I'm like, okay, in terms of dominance in the octagon, you can't even compare the two. Mayweather has clearly dominated the boxing ring more than McGregor has dominated the octagon. McGregor has lost 3 times. He lost recently to Nate Diaz. That second Nate Diaz fight was pretty close. And then his next fight against Eddie Alvarez, it was against the guy who, after losing, was not even on the main card. So, but you're totally right about McGregor building his own hype train. The guy is the best trash talker in athletics ever since Mike Tyson, probably. So you're looking at this tornado, hurricane type of a person who everybody wants to see, and everybody wants to see do this boxing match. And look at this. If McGregor loses to Mayweather in this boxing match, no one cares. Everyone says, well, yeah, that's boxing's not a sport. He's an MMA fighter. But by the off chance, if McGregor wins, it blows up his legend even more. So just for that reason, those few reasons, I gotta say McGregor is the A side on this fight as well. But I think they'll end up, yeah, continue.
It's funny because even Dana said, like, recently, if Conor wins this fight somehow, how is he ever going to even come back to MMA? How is he going to ever come back to, like, you know, this world that he's in? He'll be such an icon. What could he do at that point? Conor's so obsessed with making history, right? But yeah, like, what could be bigger history than beating the best boxer of all time? He's already a 2-weight world champion. I mean, the guy could basically walk away and never have to worry about anything the rest of his life.
I think we'll probably see him at the Patriots training camp next year if that happens. Maybe he'll be trying out for Bill Belichick's squad, trying to make the NFL. I mean, what else would he do?
If anybody can turn Conor McGregor into a football star, it's Bill Belichick.
Yeah, I can see him on special teams making a couple tackles. Who knows? Anyway, so let's finish this great show up with some fact or fiction. Let's just start with Conor and the potential fight with Floyd. Oscar De La Hoya coming out and saying that a Conor-Floyd boxing match will kill boxing. Fact or fiction? Do you agree with Oscar?
Fiction, because boxing's kind of already dead.
I was going to say the same thing.
I think we're kind of trying to bring it back a little bit, spice it up. Listen, I'm very excited for the Canelo Triple G fight. Yeah. I'm very excited for Anthony Joshua. I mean, listen, if boxing was on life support, Anthony Joshua had the clamps that has brought it back to life, because that Klitschko fight was amazing. I remember, I mean, before I ever started watching MMA, I used to watch, you know, Lennox Lewis in his prime, Evander Holyfield in his prime. That was, you know, I love big heavyweight boxing fights. And Anthony Joshua versus Klitschko was that for me. But I think boxing, you know, the super fight between Pacquiao and Mayweather did a lot of damage to the sport, because it was hyped for so long and then it just didn't deliver. I'll tell you right now, no matter what happens in this fight, Conor McGregor always delivers. Whether it be with a win, whether it be with a memorable performance, or whether it be with the most crazy lead up to a fight in the history of combat sports, this will deliver. And I think it's good for everybody involved. I mean, listen, if Dana White's, you know, taking time out of his busy schedule, trust me, it's very busy, to put this together, one of the best promoters in the history of combat sports thinks that this thing should happen, and it's that big, it can't miss.
Yeah, I got to agree with you about boxing kind of, you know, already. I mean, you got to say that MMA is definitely growing much faster than boxing is at this point. But I'm not a big fan of what De La Hoya said, because it's like, it's just, I don't like how when people say novelty events kind of ruin the sport. Like, the home run derby doesn't ruin baseball, you know? It's just, enjoy it. Everyone wants to see this. It's just, sit back and enjoy it. Don't be such a traditionalist. I get where he's coming from, but I don't think that'll happen. All right, Fact or fiction? Jose Aldo. Let's get back to Aldo now. His legacy will always be defined by the 13 seconds he had in the octagon with McGregor.
Fiction. Definitely not. I think that way too much is being made about that one performance. This is mixed martial arts, and if you're new to the game, I can understand maybe overreacting. Maybe you started watching Conor McGregor and you've been kind of watching it and like, oh, okay, cool. Like Conor McGregor's amazing. Everybody loses in MMA. Everybody, unless your name is John Jones. But you know what? His career is only about halfway over, so he could probably lose too. I talked about it earlier. You look at some of the greats of this game. The Randy Couture's, the BJ Penns, the Chuck Liddells, the Tito Ortiz's. They've all lost, and they've all lost a lot. Jose Aldo had one bad night after a year of buildup, one of the most emotional experiences probably of his entire life. I mean, Conor digs into your soul during the lead up to a fight. He makes you so mad that by the time fight night comes, you're out of your mind. Jose Aldo never fights like that. Jose Aldo is known for power and defense and leg kicks, but in good timing. Like when it's the right time to attack, when it's the right time to sit back. Right. He came charging right in, 13 seconds, ate a big punch, went to sleep. You know, the legacy isn't affected. He's still done what he's done. He'll probably, for at least the next 5 to 10 years, be the most iconic featherweight in the history of the sport.
I'm going to disagree with you. I'm going to take a little bit of a hot take. I think for the hardcore UFC fans, I agree with you. I think Aldo will always be remembered for being one of the greatest fighters in the sport. However, for the casual UFC fans, and just regular sports fans in general, they're always going to remember Aldo as the guy who lost in 13 seconds. They're going to be like, oh yeah, remember that Conor fight when he beat up that dude in 13 seconds? Who was the guy he beat up? Oh, it was Jose Aldo. Yeah, he ended his career. And especially now that I'm predicting Aldo to lose on Saturday, I think that's just going to make his legacy even more defined by the 13 seconds. But let's move on. The last one, Chris Cyborg.
Before we move on.
Wait. Oh, you want a last word? Okay, go ahead.
Listen, I like that new look you got going on over there. That beard is nice. I don't know, it looks maybe like a goatee today, but it's going to be all messed up next week when you have egg all over your face when Aldo finishes Holloway, okay?
All right.
Go ahead.
All right, let's move on to Chris Cyborg. Looks like she might be fighting at UFC 214, am I correct?
Dana White came out on the UFC Unfiltered podcast. Check it out. It was an awesome listen. Max Holloway's on the show, and he told Matt Serra and Ray Longo that Chris Cyborg is tentatively scheduled for UFC 214. They're currently looking for an opponent. Rumor has been they've been working on Kat Zingano. Dana White said that she's not ready to go, so he's still looking for an opponent. But the plan is for Cyborg to be on 214.
Okay, so the fact or fiction then? If Zingano's not ready to go, fact or fiction? Cyborg will fight Germaine de Randamie for the belt straight off the bat.
Fiction. I wish it was fact because we like our champions to be fighting, but for a couple of different reasons, Germaine de Randamie does not want to fight Cyborg. She called her a cheater, which I do think is a little bit ironic. Some media folks have talked about the fact that she had a few incidents in her fight against Holly Holm that could be considered cheating, hitting her after the bell. But you know what? I think Germaine doesn't want anything to do with the 135 or 145 pound division. Wants to go back down to 135. Fine. That division was created for Cyborg anyway. Cyborg 145, new champ. Strip Germaine. Bring somebody else in who wants to fight Cyborg.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with you. I think fiction. I think de Randamie is kind of running away from this fight. I think she's kind of scared. I think she'll probably wait for a more inferior opponent to kind of just get a couple wins as a champion to defend her belt and build on her legacy. I honestly want to see a rematch with Holly Holm because that fight at UFC 208 was a sham. It stunk. You agree with that? It stunk.
No, it wasn't the best fight, and that's kind of Holly Holm's fighting style. I mean, you know, you think
just
back
the controversies involved too. It was just the late hits and whatnot.
Yeah, it was definitely not a great fight. But Holly Holm, you know, her fights can either be really exciting depending on the fighting style of who she's fighting, or it could turn out like that. I mean, her early fights in the UFC were really slow pace. She stayed on the outside, looked to counter against That's what makes Holly potentially versus Cyborg such an amazing and intriguing matchup. And that's why when Holly was going up to 145, that's the fight everybody wanted to see, because Cyborg is aggressive, comes forward, hits hard, and Holly is that counter striker with the boxing acumen. And I think that stylistic matchup would be amazing. I think it would challenge both ladies. We'll see though. I think Holly's got a fight, big fight against Betch Kohea. So she's booked.
Yeah, that's coming up. We got a lot of really good, you know, UFC on Fox fight nights coming up after this 212 card. So we'll probably see you then breaking down those fights. Derek Lewis, I'm really excited for that next week. But Matt, thank you again.
Beast.
Yeah, I love him. Love him. Love him when he fell asleep at the UFC 200 press conference. It might have been the fight night before UFC. It was during fight week. He just put his head down during the press conference and just decided to take a little nap. It was one of the greatest moments, I think, in UFC history. You probably disagree with me, but I thought
He's quite a character, I will say that.
Yeah, he is. All right, Matt, thanks again for joining us. Don't forget to watch UFC 212 on Saturday.